There we go. Thank you, Soumya. So I'm going to take a quick step back into what we knew as vRealize previously and what we know today as Aria. So last year, we announced Aria Hub, Graph, and several other Aria services at VMworld. And they've been IAing, GAing, and brought to market since then. But I wanted to take a step back into the old vRealize platform, including things like Tanzu observability and whatnot, just so we kind of know where we sit, right? Because many of the products that you have deployed today are still vRealize. Some of them have not even been rebranded yet. So just kind of overall where the functionality that we're talking about today sits. So we're talking about basically the dark blue line here. It's the old vRealize suite of products: vRealize Operations, vRealize Log Insight, vRealize Network Insight, True Visibility Suite, which is the old Blue Medora stuff, as well as Cloud Health. Of course, there's several different competencies there around monitoring, troubleshooting, cost capacity, which is really what we're going to focus on today. So I wanted you to see kind of where that sits within the overall platform, including the APM up top, as well as the automation platform down below, because cost and capacity can be fed into things like VRA, as well as Tanzu observability, and not only on-prem, or VMware Private Cloud, but VMC as well as NPC or native public cloud as well. So this is kind of vRealize of yesterday, right? So if we were talking about this, a year ago or more, this is what it would look like. So fast forward to today and post VMworld of last year, we announced the Aria suite of tools, right? So there were a few rebrands here, but there were some new services added as well, right? So Aria Hub and Graph were announced at VMworld last year. Hub being the front end, kind of a cohesive view into the Aria or vRealize suite of services. And then Aria Graph, our at-scale data store, kind of abstracting all the relationships between objects, metrics, properties, et cetera. So 3 new services beyond Hub and Graph. Migration guardrails and business insights. And we're not going to focus on those today, but those were new services. 2 of them are IA at this point. 1 is beta, but Aria migration, for example, the ability to assess, plan, and migrate VMware Private Cloud or VMC to native public cloud, for example, or VMC and AWS is what's IA today. So business insights and guardrails are to come. But the Aria Automation, Aria Operations, and Aria Operations for Logs are effectively rebrands, right? So these are the old platforms or services that we know and love that you've been using for quite some time. Some of them are easily recognizable, right? Aria Operations is vRealize Operations. Aria Automation, of course, is vRealize Automation. Some of them have changed names a little bit. I do have a cheat sheet that I will use from time to time to kind of map these old names to new names. But this is kind of the new environment that we sit in, right? So when folks are talking about Aria, feel free to take a screenshot of this, by the way. This is what they're talking about. So how does that fit into kind of, the cost competency and the cloud operating model? So kind of working our way from the bottom to top here. Think of, building our clouds, be they VMware Private Cloud, vSphere on-prem, VMC, or native public cloud, right? We want to be able to provide cost performance, secure config, as well as delivery capabilities across those clouds, wherever they may be. Folks oftentimes talk about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, and effectively what we mean is 2 or more clouds, wherever those are. If they're private, great, on-prem. If they're VMC, great. If they're native public cloud, great. We can support, and by we, I mean VMware Aria, can support cost performance, secure config, and delivery across those clouds, and then kind of work our way up into things like VMware Tanzu, DevOps environments, and Aria Operations for applications. So with that kind of gives us, a starting place where we're going to talk about cost, how it relates to VMware Private Cloud as well as native public cloud, because there are 2 separate platforms that are going to do the work here, right? Aria Operations is going to do our vSphere on-prem costing, and Cloud Health, or Aria Cost, powered by Cloud Health, is going to do our public cloud costing. So I will pause there. Soumya, Brian, anything that you want to add?
No, I think that sounds good.
Oh, I think that we're
Okay.
doing a fantastic job. Let's keep the bus rolling.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All yours, Soumya.
Thank you. Thank you, Brock. So why is cost important? So looking at this slide, there's a bunch of articles, market researches that are published. But essentially, cost is important because we are entering a brave new era in the digital world, and our journey through the tech landscape has been awe-inspiring with the rise of phenomenal technologies like OpenAI, NLP, machine learning, computer vision, mixed reality, metaverse, you name it, so many things. Now, these tech marvels are causing a seismic shift in the world, but they're also consuming a lot of cloud resources from compute to memory, storage, network, software, OS, power and cooling, labor, maintenance, etc., whatnot. Now, all of us here are caught in the whirlwind of creating best-in-class products and spurred on by an offense strategy, which means innovate, develop, conquer. And this drive has been really relentless, and the cloud costs have again skyrocketed to become the second highest expense for most IT companies, falling only behind salaries. Now imagine that a cost category or a part of unit economics, as we say, that was barely on our radars a while ago, is now burning a sizable hole in our pockets and has put itself right there on the map. But again, as the marketplace tightens and the economic pressures are looming over us, we see a paradigm shift in our strategies, and we're now combining the offense strategy with a smarter defense strategy or game. And when I say that, I mean that we need to develop a laser sharp focus on our spend, especially when it comes to cloud expenses. Now, what are the benefits of it? We might say that it's just the bottom line, but it's also about a greener future, lowering our carbon footprint, driving sustainability in the long run, and preventing ourselves from cutting costs in places where it might be more difficult for the organizations. Now, that I feel is something worth striving for. But the tricky part really is, how do we begin to navigate the whole cost conundrum that people are talking about? Now, understanding our expenses, holding teams accountable, allocating them effectively across teams or across whatever constructs we are following, planning for reductions, planning for future expenditures, all of this could feel like a maze that we find difficulty in navigating. Now, in order to solve for that, we at VMware are here to light the way, and we are equipped to help you unravel the complex problems of cloud costs, offering the solutions that you need to master to have your cloud economics sorted. Now, we're not just talking about cost cutting, we're talking about smart and sustainable and future-proof strategies of your cloud infrastructure. Now, let's talk about a regular customer journey together and see as to what problems we can solve through cloud management products, especially in case of Aria Operations and Cloud Health. So next slide, please. Yep. So if you look at this particular slide, this is the day one cost operations, typically day 2 or day 3 operations in general. But day one cost operations is all about understanding and managing your costs. After that, you can do planning and chargeback and whatnot. But first thing that you need to know in order to be able to go through the whole journey is, what is my total cost of ownership? Give me a sense of the whole cloud expenses that I'm having. That is something we typically call as total cost of ownership. This can be distributed across different clouds, different data centers, or CPU memory storage also for that matter. If you look at that, you'll see that, this doesn't seem right. Maybe you calculated basis the list prices that are available on the websites, but I received a sizable discount. In that case, you can go and track your expenses, manage your expenses, edit your expenses using cost drivers if your cost seems off. Now, the next thing is that despite editing them, you still feel that the cost is very high. Now you want to be able to analyze that cost. You want to see as to why that cost is high. You might compare between R&D cost center versus finance cost center versus customer service cost center. That is cost analysis. Or you might say that, give me the top 10 VMs that are costing the most. I want to hold them accountable. Or give me the top 10 business units that are achieving the most savings. I want to reward them. So all of that comes as a part of cost analysis. Now, once you've done cost analysis, you also want to inform your LOBs and hold them accountable for the cloud costs or the cloud resources that they're consuming, especially in terms of tangible numbers, which is understood when it's in dollar value usually. So that's when Showback comes into picture. And after doing that, you still know that the cost is high. So you want to optimize those costs. That's when potential savings come into picture. So what do I do now? I can achieve a lot of savings or rather avoid future costs through reclaiming orphan disks or snapshots, idle VMs, or even right sizing some of the oversized virtual machines. Now, once I do that, I want to see, have I done enough or is there more that I can do? So that is gratification and check that you can get through realized savings as well. So this actually completes your level 1 or day 1 cost operations. And you can get yourself running through this. But after this is the day 2 cost operations, which I'll talk in the next slide. Rob, if you could. Thank you. So having done with that, you say that, okay, I've understood my whole cost cycle. I know what to do now, how to see costs, analyze them, show back and optimize. But I have new projects coming in or some projects are coming to an end. I want to see how much they'll cost, whether or not they'll fit my data center. That's where infrastructure planning comes in. Or I have new people coming in the team, new members joining the project. I want to see if I can add new virtual machines to the cluster and how much they'll cost. So all these planning scenarios are in tight conjunction with capacity scenarios as well. You also see migration planning or cost comparison, which basically means that I'm running my workloads on, say, for example, VMs here in AWS. I feel it's expensive. Can I try vSphere on-prem? Or I'm working on public cloud. Can I try a private cloud or a SaaS form factor of any VMware cloud? How much will that cost? With across comparable workloads. That is something that I can do as a part of cost planning as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. So day 3 cost operations is a more mature use case for certain organizations that say that, we have our own finance model that our finance team has shared with us, which means that true cost is fine, but they have figured out as to how much they want to charge per vCPU or CPU gigahertz or per GB RAM or per GB storage, per unit of guest OS, some metadata, tags, etc., licenses. And that is what I want to be able to use in order to charge back my teams. Now, that's where rate cards and chargeback scenarios come into picture, typically for enterprises. We have a whole product as an extension of VMware Ops or Aria Ops developed. It's called VMware Chargeback. That does it for multi-tenant constructs as well. And when I say that, I mean that there is a lot of service providers who use this as their business model to create rate cards, do chargeback reporting, and also billing on top of it that they share with their tenants as a bill. So most of the things that we can meter, we can create rate cards on top of them and be able to bill their customers basis that. So usage, allocation, all of that data is available. Multiply it with rate cards. We have a whole running pricing engine that helps them create a chargeback and billing report along with a lot of metering capabilities as well. So that at high level is chargeback. Both enterprises and service providers can use them basis vCenter constructs, or if you're a service provider, they typically use vCloud Director, which helps them manage resources, provision resources across in a multi-tenant format as well. So these are the 3 primary areas of costing. I'll pause for a bit and then I'll talk about Aria Operations and how it does cost. Any questions that we have so far? Okay. Okay, we can cover questions later as well. It's fine, I can do the next slide. So cost support in Aria Operations. Now, all the capabilities that I spoke about a while ago, they're all listed as the middle layer over here. So you have overview, analysis, showback, and optimization, and then you have planning and chargeback. Now, all these capabilities at large are available across the types of clouds that you see at the bottom. So vSphere on-prem and all the VMware clouds, that is VMC on AWS, AVS, GCP, VMC Dell, OCVS. For all of these capabilities are available. For VMC on AWS, GCP, and VMC Dell, we have bill-based costing available in case you're purchasing it from Aria Operations or from VMware. But in case you've purchased it from any of the VMware clouds from the other providers, we still have the list prices. We can still do costing. And in case you say that, I again received a sizable discount, we have an ability for you to enter that discount in order to have more accurate total cost of ownership. Beyond the VMware clouds, we also have public cloud costing, but that is in conjunction with Cloud Health. So all the public cloud cost data for AWS, Azure, and GCP, we get that from Cloud Health. So in order to get public cloud cost information, you have to have a Cloud Health license in place. Likewise, there's a bidirectional integration, which means that vSphere on-prem VM cost data is also shared with Cloud Health. Again, you have to have Aria Operations for that as well. So it basically means whatever your consumption plane is, we will help you get see all your cost information at large on a single pane of glass. That's the intent. Now that said, the top layer that you see is vSphere based cloud, VRA managed cloud. And you might be thinking that, okay, why is it that we're doing it across so many levels? Because customers do come back to us and say that, you're giving me all the showback basis, host, clusters, VMs, data centers. I don't care about it. I am provisioning my VMs using VRA. I want cost for projects and deployments. Or for Tanzu, I want, or rather Kubernetes, I want it for namespaces. And I have, desktop as a service from Horizon. I want it for users, sessions, or VDI pools, RDS farms. Public cloud, I don't care about VMs or EC2 instances so much as I care about regions, services, accounts. And especially in case of multi-tenant environment, VMs don't matter as much as charging the tenant at a tenant level or a tenant VDC level or VDC level or VApp level and so on and so forth. And especially in case of business absenteers is when you can actually use cost scenarios to be able to charge your application teams basis those constructs, as opposed to just getting showback for VMs and clusters and hosts, which at times does not give you enough to be able to analyze into it, enough to be able to show back to the different teams. So we do cost across the kinds of constructs that you can see at the top, so that whatever information is palatable to you, you can do cost scenarios basis that. So I'll pause here for a bit, and after this I can cover some of these capabilities in terms of how they look on the screen. Okay, so this one that we're looking at over here is the first one, which is cost overview or total cost of ownership. On the top, you see, allow me a second, I'll actually use annotation. On the top here, you see all types of clouds listed. So these are all VMware clouds, and then you also have public clouds. So you can see total cost of ownership for this particular cloud and for this cloud. And you have total cost of ownership distributed by data centers, by cost drivers, by capacity. And in case of public cloud, it is distributed by accounts, regions, and services. So all of this information is available on a single pane of glass through a multi-cloud overview page, cost overview page. Next slide, please. Now, if you can look over here, there is cost drivers, which basically means I have the power to edit my expenses. I can do it across cost drivers for vSphere on-prem and VMC and AWS. There's cloud providers section that you see. I haven't put a screenshot for that, but that's where you can basically edit the reference data or the list prices reference data if you feel that, the prices have changed a little or I received a discount. You can also, in the settings button, you can actually set your server hardware depreciation, saying that, I want my hardware to depreciate over 3 years, 5 years, using whatever model. I can do that. I can also say that in case of VMware cloud costing, the standard cost ratio of CPU memory storage is 5:1:0.5. I want to amend it to 5:2:2, or whatever you feel is the accurate ratio. You can do that as well. You can enter a discount percentage that you've received in every single region in case, the bills are not available. So all of those things you can do as a part of your cost drivers capabilities. Next slide, please. Now here, if you look, there is cost analysis capability that we recently released in April timeframe. So this helps you answer a lot of questions, like I mentioned before. So you see list and compare at the bottom. So you fill in the parameters that, I want cost metrics for virtual machines within this data center for current month. Once you choose that, and then you say, give me the top 10. So it gives you top 10 virtual machines who having the highest cost within this month. Or you can say compare VM 1, 2, and 3 with respect to total cost of ownership, or any other metric. You say potential savings, realized savings, projected cost. You can do that. You can also do this for business applications. You can do this for custom groups as well. Now, this is new, that for custom groups, we don't usually publish metrics because it could be disparate objects. But in cost analysis, we've devised an algorithm to be able to immediately carry out cost analysis for custom groups as well. And that's a powerful feature. So regardless of what constructs you're using, even if you're using custom constructs, we will help you determine the cost of those constructs as well. You can do it across multiple.
Yeah, Soumya, this is new in 8.12, right? The cost analysis.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, back in the day, we would build views and dashboards and whatnot to kind of highlight, your most expensive VMs or clusters or whatnot. So I think this is a nice new feature that, gives you a little bit of kind of graphical UI around it as well, right? So which ones are the most expensive? Which ones need a little bit more attention? I think it's 8.12 was packed with features, and this is one kind of hidden. So I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, you can do a bunch of things using cost analysis. Like I said, you can do it for cost, price, bills. You can do it across multiple management layers. Like I mentioned, you can do it for business applications, custom groups, compare, list top 10, etc., etc. You can export it as well. You can save the analysis if you're used to running the same kind of analysis. You always want top 10 VMs under this data center. You don't want to put in all those filters over and over. So there's a save capability that you can see somewhere over here. You can do that. You can export it in a PDF. So at the bottom, there's also an Excel sheet that you can export as well. That's not visible in the screenshot, but yeah, not Excel sheet, but a table rather that you can export. So all those capabilities exist as a part of cost analysis. I would encourage you to try it. Okay, we can move to the next slide. Now, this is cost optimization. There's something we launched as ROI dashboard about a couple of years ago, but cost optimization makes more sense over here. So this gives you a sense of, okay, what is my total cost of ownership? What percentage of this cost can I really save if I were to? And currently, potential savings are only basis oversized virtual machines and reclaimable resources like orphan disks, idle VM snapshots, etc. But there's a lot more that you can do in terms of optimization. To be honest, you can amend your workload placement, you can do compute optimized, etc., etc. So there's a lot of opportunity for saving, or rather avoiding cost when it comes to cost optimization. So you can definitely start here. So you can see the dollar value that is mentioned over here, and there's potential savings percentage, and how much have you really realized over time? How much more opportunity do you have only in this month to save over your total cost of ownership? Now, this is something that gives you actionable details in order to understand, okay, this is what I can do in order to reduce cost, or in order to avoid cost later in case you're using vSphere on-prem workloads like that. So this definitely helps.
Yeah, Soumya, I think this speaks a little bit to, kind of the reclamation and right-sizing capabilities of Aria Operations as well, right? So assigning a cost to an object is one thing, but being able to right-size that object is quite another, right? So the low-hanging fruit here, of course, is VMs and oversized VMs, right? As well as orphan VMDKs, old snaps, what have you. The ability to right-size VMs, clusters, and whatnot is really the power of cost optimization.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, absolutely. That's where we can definitely get started. There are certain activities, there are certain actions that are a little difficult, but some of these, especially when it comes to reclamation, those are low-hanging fruits. And on top of it, recently we've also launched automation central capabilities wherein you can schedule jobs that at the end of the week you can please get rid of all my orphan disks and snapshots, etc., etc. You don't even have to do it. The system will do it for you if you just schedule that job.
Yeah,
So
and with Automation Central in 8.12, we added some NPC capabilities, right? So we not only can do that with vSphere on-prem, which we could previously, but now we can, I think we can power off Azure VMs and whatnot. We can reboot them as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Next slide, please. That's good. Yeah, so talking about Showback now, Showback essentially is a capability that allows you to show the cost back to your application teams or back to the users that are consuming them, again, in order to drive behavior. So here on the left-hand side, you see a data center filter that has been added. You can do it for clusters, hosts, etc., etc. You can also do it for, like, if you change this dashboard a little, change the filters, you can do it for VRA objects like projects and deployments. You can do it for Horizon objects, VCD objects, business applications, and so on and so forth. Then you'll be able to see the corresponding VMs, what their month-to-date cost is, how much potential savings are, projected cost trend of the selected VM, as you can see at the bottom. And then there's VM cost distribution. And of course, you have projected cost and month-to-date cost along with potential savings available over here. Now you can get an extract of this. You can share this with your application teams one by one, saying that, this is how much your team was accountable for this month. And especially with respect to projected cost and potential savings, you see 81 versus 64. So there is definitely a lot of opportunity to save in this case. So that's something that can help you drive behavior sooner if you can point to the VMs and say that, there's so much saving and there's so much cost associated with this particular resource that you're consuming. So can we be a little more mindful around it? So this is a powerful capability that we've had for quite a bit of time. And we are enriching this. We're trying to get more out of the box dashboards as opposed to, customers even having to change these filters manually by themselves. So
Yeah, and I think many of the costing and pricing related dashboards have gotten to be quite nice, right? When they first came out, I think they were rather rudimentary, but now they're really rich. They have a ton of detail, and not only today's but historic as well. So I think the cost homepage itself is a really nice landing spot, but a lot of these dashboards that are accessible from the homepage are very rich as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. Thanks, Brock, for reminding me. So as a part of the cost homepage or cost overview page, you have a bunch of dashboards that allow you to assess cost across data centers, across cost drivers. You have cost versus price capabilities. So you can basically slice and dice your cost metrics in different shape or forms. And we've created out of the box dashboards that will help you do that off the shelf, as opposed to having to spend time creating those dashboards. And most of our customers tend to consume them as opposed to, engaging with PSO and trying to build new dashboards, especially in case of cost capabilities. The product has matured a lot over time, and there's less and less need for having to do anything custom in that regard.
Yeah, I just gonna have this, Brian. I think that's a key point right there. Is that a lot of times people will ask how much of this is created and is part of the product, or how much of it do I have to create myself? And as you just mentioned, yes, as the product has matured, a number of these dashboards and their richness and the environment that they represent are built into the product so that you don't have to spend that extra time building them out yourself. I think that's key, what you just said.
Yeah, nothing that we've shown today is custom, right? All of this is out of the box.
Yeah. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so talking about cost planning capabilities or what if analysis, as we like to call it, things that I spoke about, you have workload planning and infrastructure planning, which means that if you go to workload planning, traditional is for traditional workloads, or you have for hyper-converged workloads as well. You have add and remove VM capabilities, if you can see here in the screenshot. So what it basically helps you do is you go there, you put in the VM properties, like if I want so much CPU, memory, storage, this much is the percentage and percentage use and month on month growth. So all of that you can add as a part of your parameters, or you can pick up an existing virtual machine that I want something exactly like this. Will it fit my cluster and how much will it cost? I can do that for workloads. So especially when new people are coming in, I can do that for new hosts. If I'm adding a new project, I need to add a new host. I want to check, will it fit my data center? How much will it cost? I can do that for both traditional and hyper-converged. And then here you see migration planning for VMware Cloud. And this one that is hidden is migration planning for public cloud. So this is also something that you can do in order to compare the cost competitiveness across multiple types of clouds. You can see for a vSphere on-prem versus AWS versus GCP, how much will all the comparable clouds cost? And then you can make an informed decision on whether or not to migrate and how to migrate for that matter. So those capabilities exist in Aria Operations, and not just from a cost standpoint. It is also very important from a capacity standpoint, because the first thing that you need to see is whether or not it will fit. And then you look at, okay, how much will it cost? Is it a good decision to make here? So that's something that you can do as a part of what if analysis. Sorry, we can move to the next slide. Okay, so I think these were the main capabilities. You can talk about pricing and chargeback now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Soumya. I appreciate it. So, Soumya spoke mostly about costing, right? So costing and showback, the ability to show back to your customers what it costs to run their infrastructure. But pricing and chargeback is something totally different, right? So Aria Operations has the ability to add service fees or upcharge. If you want to make a profit on your VMs, you can. So there's a distinct difference, and oftentimes these get used interchangeably, but they're really different, right? Cost showback is the cost of the cost that you incur to run a VM and provide it as a service. The price or chargeback is the ability to actually bill your customer and potentially make a profit. So, the use cases here are really multi-tenancy. If, potentially you're a state agency or a government agency, and you have departments that you're billing back to, you have the ability to add service fees, build fees, et cetera, on top of that. So how do you do it? There's a couple different ways, but generally you will go into configure cost settings and then go ahead and look at your pricing card. So you can define your pricing policies generally for any VM, including your VMC VMs, but your pricing policies are either going to be based on cost, which is what Soumya talked about, or based on rate, which is our ability to define what a vCPU costs, for example, or a gig of memory or a gig of disk. So the cost is really just kind of a factor, right? So if you're paying, I don't know, $1 a day in terms of CPU costs, you can add pricing onto that by, say, 1.1x or 10%. Same sort of thing for memory, storage, and additional cost as well. Now, if you want to use a rate, you have the ability to assign a dollar value to vCPU, for example, or memory or storage. So say potentially you have a 4 vCPU VM and you want to charge your customer, $100 a day per vCPU, it's going to be $400 per day. Now, you also have the ability to add in fees for guest OSs, right? And that'll be the guest OS found by VMware Tools, I believe. And on top of that, you have the ability to add pricing charges for vSphere tags. So if you're using a tagging policy, say for backups or AV or something of the sort, you have the ability to add in additional charges based on that. And then, of course, you have the ability to do one-time, i.e. build charges, right? So spinning up a VM, it's going to cost you maybe $100, and then you go on, as well as recurring fees. So oftentimes, my customers that I worked with on price cards will use rate-based charges because that's what they've done in the past. And it gives them the ability to assign based on allocation, right? Now, therein lies a key point. So on rate-based pricing, CPU and disk pricing are based on allocation, but RAM is based on utilization. So, Soumya, I actually opened a feature request on this, I think a few weeks ago, to allow for allocation and utilization-based pricing across the board. But that's a key point. So if you're using rate-based pricing today, keep in mind that CPU and disk are allocation-based and memory is utilization-based. So, we can never promise features, but hopefully that's to come in one of the next releases. So, how does that manifest? What does it look like? There's all sorts of different dashboards, again, from the cost homepage, but Chargeback is just one of them, right? So it gives you the ability to select a group of VMs, be it vSphere World or a VMware folder or a custom group of VMs that you might have. And, to kind of get the price summary on that group, to see which of them are powered off, idle, reclaimable, i.e. they can be bought back, as well as, the price distribution, which are the top 100 VMs in that particular group, right? So the ability to kind of slice and dice your VMs and find the ones that are most expensive is really what this dashboard is for. And then we also have the ability to kind of compare cost to price, right? So what it costs you to build and run a VM as opposed to what you're charging your customer. So I think Kumar and I have been talking back and forth on chat here, and there's definitely some use cases for him here, right? So Kumar, maybe just email me on that and we can have a look at this. But this gives you visibility into your profit, right? So not everybody on this call is a profit center. I get that. But oftentimes when you're building VMs, you do want to put some sort of delta on there to make a profit. So with that, Brian, I think we're off to public cloud costing and cloud health. So all yours.
Great, thank you very much. So let's just move to we're going to start off, we're going to talk a little bit, Brock and Soumya have been talking a lot about operations, dealing with costing on-prem, et cetera. When it comes to cloud health, which is now Aria cost, some of the slides will have cloud health on it. That's how all of us know it and have known it for some time. Some of us will now start to know it as Aria cost moving forward. But on this particular slide right here, on the right-hand side, we have, vRealize or Aria Operations. So it's vRealize Operations traditionally. The box right here represents, on-site or the SaaS model. There's really no difference. We just draw a box around it because there's no difference in functionality between the SaaS version and the on-prem version. There is some support that VMware gives and some maintenance that we give on the back end for the SaaS version, but basic functionality is exactly the same. And when you install this, you install it fairly thinly. It comes down as an OVA. You drop it, if it's on-prem, into your virtual center, and then you make the connection back into your on-prem, and you're able to monitor, take a look at, object explore, assign costs to anything that you can see on premise, via virtual machines, the breakdown of the virtual machines, storage, etc. If you're also running an extended portion of your environment out into the cloud, then it can tie in there. That's this piece right here. So if you're running, VMware on one of the supported cloud providers, we can tie in out there also and see all of the information that's running, as well as manipulate all the financial data for that's running out in the cloud. On the left-hand side of the screen right here, which is basically native public cloud, that's what Cloud Health was built for. So Cloud Health will go out, it's your FinOps financial advisor. It goes out and it takes a look at all of the costs that are running out in the public cloud. And it can tie back, we'll talk about that in just a minute, into your on-prem or your SaaS version of operations. And it will go out and it will take a look at all of the things that are running there and try to help you get a handle on where are your costs. Again, what is it costing you in the public cloud? How about right sizing? How about saving some money, potentially powering off virtual machines on the weekend when they're not being utilized, maybe moving onto object-based storage. So it is geared specifically towards taking a look at everything that's happening from a financial perspective in the public cloud, analyzing it, saving you money, and then allowing you to take that money and reallocate it into something else in your company that can better drive your bottom line. So move to the next slide, please. So in this slide, and as Brock and Soumya were talking about with operations, it would behoove us to be able to create a symbiotic relationship between what's happening on-prem and what's happening up in the cloud, so we can get a better handle of everything that's running, what all the costs associated with them are. And then that would allow us to better justify where we wanted to place those workloads. So in operations, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we install it, but we want to keep it thin. So we install the basic operations component itself, and then we have management packs that kind of pop onto it like a buffet that allow you to make extra functionality and connections to things such as Aria Cost or Cloud Health as we know it, to be able to push all information both northbound up into Cloud Health out of operations, or pull it southbound so that we can digest things from Cloud Health down into operations also. You could do, we give you both of them so that you could do it one way or the other way or both. And so we'll take a look at this just a second in a later slide. So we'll move ahead. Thank you, sir. So when we take a look at it, when you log into Cloud Health, again, Cloud Health is a SaaS only. This comes up a lot, and people will ask, hey, can I deploy Cloud Health on-prem? Is it an OVA I can pull down or something like that? And the answer is no, it is a SaaS only solution. So we create a tenant, which is just our word for a user. We create the tenant in Cloud Health, and then we create the first administrator. The administrator logs in and creates other administrators. And then you will, underneath that, you can create an entire company and separate business units that have access to their own billing information. So when you first log in, you're presented with a screen that looks basically like this up in the upper left-hand corner. You'll notice that the major cloud providers are listed right here. We did just add in the newest version, the support for Alibaba, although it's not shown in this specific screenshot. You would have Alibaba Cloud listed right here. And then the data center tab, if you look closely, is over here on the right-hand side. When you install that management pack for operations, then this will then become active and you will be able to see information. If you install the northbound, for this example, you would be able to see information and costing that you've put together inside of operations, and it will push it up into Cloud Health. The purpose of this is so that you could then go in and you could run scenarios for, if I keep my workloads on-prem, what is it costing me? We know that because operations is sending that information up into Cloud Health, and we can take that and we can compare it against cost and usage reports, et cetera, coming out of the cloud providers, and then run scenarios to say, if I move it, what would it cost me? And should I keep it on-prem or should I move it out? The decision is yours. Cloud Health is there merely to make the comparison and supply you with the numbers so you can make those judgment calls yourself. On the right-hand side, this is just a small compendium of the different pieces that are available in Cloud Health, but they kind of boil up into these three pillars, which is cost and usage visibility. So gaining the visibility into the cloud spend and reporting by cost center, cost resource optimization, right-sizing your cloud infrastructure to eliminate wasted spending. On this, just for a moment, when we're talking about optimization, again, a lot of people will deploy into the cloud, and if you deploy into the cloud and you kind of have that set it and forget it mentality, you could end up with a huge bill at the end of the month, right? This might not be as dramatic if it's on-prem because you own all the infrastructure, but up in the cloud, this could be catastrophic potentially. So being able to visibly see what's happening, stay on top of it through things like anomaly detection, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and then taking those resources and optimizing them to eliminate that wasted spend. Not only can you stay on top of where you presently are, but maybe you can push those expenses down Again, saving yourself a tremendous amount of money in your company. And then governance and automation is the bottom. So you create custom policies. You can receive alerts. For example, you could set a particular budget, and then you could have a budget versus your actual. And as your actual gets close to what your budget is, we can have that send out an alert and go, wait a second, it's only the 15th of the month and you're already at 80% of your budget. We might want to do something, purchase more on demand, or be aware of, take a look at it to see if something has been set out there that is gobbling up a bunch of resources that shouldn't be there, and we would want to power it off or move it around or reallocate it someplace else. So move to the next slide then. So right here in this one, we actually have some of the cloud health management packs. As we attach to the major cloud providers and start to pull in those cost and usage reports, you'll notice here we have Azure and AWS. We can start to look at a lot of the trending analysis. We can also granularly drill down to see not only just what things are running out there, but we can start to subdivide them based upon what we call perspectives. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And we can drill down and we can see exactly what the trends are, where they're going, and we can make predictions so that we can make budgetary allotments for things that are going to be happening or workloads that we expect to be placing out there. We also can take a look at combining private, hybrid, and public cloud costs into single dashboards and reports that you can then subscribe to, have them auto-mailed, or download them and import them into a third-party application that maybe you're using in your company to combine a number of things together that would give a report to a CFO or a CIO so that they can take a look at what's happening holistically inside of the company. So we'll move to the next slide. So right here, what we're taking a look at is inside of Cloud Health, you'll notice that the data center portion is what's being highlighted right here. So again, since this is talking a lot about costing with operations, once you make that connection through the management pack, it will start to push up resources out of operations with the costing associated with them. You'll see right here that it says that they're all active, healthy on the right-hand side, and it will start to build out, again, cost center or data center is highlighted. It will start to build out all the costing inside of Cloud Health that we can compare with the other hyperscalers that are over on the left-hand side and see what cost and do costing models and justifications against on-prem versus cloud. You'll notice that if you look closely in the slide, it's a little bit tiny, but we have here, we actually have a number of the resources that were allocated from inside of operations, and they get pushed up right here so that we can start to see the total costs. We can break it down based upon, weekly, daily, monthly, individual projects, whatever we're pushing up northbound, we can actually break all these down inside of this whole section inside of Cloud Health. On the left-hand side, we actually have this menu that goes down. I'll draw a little arrow going this direction. And this is all the options that you can do when you are highlighting one of the components at the top, such as AWS, Azure, or your data center. We have recommendations, asset metrics, usage reports, cost of history reports, as well as multi-cloud reports, which are new in the product, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Okay, so we'll move to the next slide here. Let me get those out of your way. So on this one, I'd like to move around a little bit counterclockwise. So when you first log in, as you would expect, you would be presented with a dashboard. It's a visual representation of information that's pertinent to you. Of course, these are customizable for anybody that logs in. You could have one for Soumya, one for Brock, one for myself, with the information that's pertinent to us. Pre-canned ones, much like in operations, are in there for CFO dashboards, CIO dashboards, etc. These basically consist of a bunch of widgets that you create by going into your cost history, manipulating what you'd like to see that's important to you, break something down by a user or by a project or by where it resides out in the cloud. You save that widget and then you just build out a dashboard and then subscribe to it. Once you subscribe to that, you can have it auto emailed to somebody or a group if you wish, or a Slack channel or something like that, and have that automatically sent so someone doesn't have to actually log into the product if they don't want to. I will just mention also that we do have the ability to connect to things like Datadog and other components that will allow us to ingest this. So moving on to here to tracking the costs. So, whoops, do we back up one? I think we backed up one. Thank you. So tracking the costs of the clouds and cloud health. So we actually have drill down menus. You'll notice that right here on the left-hand side, I have a cost history report as this example. And so inside of the cost history report, I can manipulate it by changing filters and options up here in the top. So with this particular one, if you'll take a look, I've actually broken it down based upon a project. The project says inside of, in this example, I was actually attached to AWS, show me all the projects that are running out there that I know about. I then can take that project and I can say, well, I'm interested inside of this particular project. Whom are my large consumers of resources? So I can choose project in my dropdown as my category, and then I can say, show me my users inside of those projects. So in this instance, Ben right here ends up being a large consumer of information or of machines, et cetera, workloads running inside of the different projects, which could be the tour project, et cetera. Anything that is visually represented up on top is numerically broken down below. So you'll notice the bottom down here, it'll have all of the numeric values that when you drill in or manipulate this information on the screen visually, it will break all these down for you so that you can then download them or create a billing report for showback to the individual units or the business units that are running. Cloud Health does an extremely good job of doing showback because it becomes very granular in all of the tagged assets that you bring into from the cloud providers and or what's shoved up out of operations, and allows you to put them all together into meaningful reports and information that you can then show back to the individual business units for, yeah, this is what you're costing me, and this is where we could save some money, and do we really need this? Can we power it off, etc.
Hey, Brian, quick time check. We are close to the top of the hour.
Oh my gosh, sorry, let's just buzz right along here. Sorry about that. There's so much to talk about, so I'll stop here for just a moment, and I'll say that one of the key things that we can do, of course, is right sizing. So right sizing recommendations will go out. We have a right sizing engine recommending that you power things off or move them to different storage potentially on the weekends. If it's something has low CPU usage. We also have anomaly detection. So it'll bubble up any anomalies that it knows about that come in. And then we have an AI engine that allows you to train it, much like, training your email to spam, that will say these things are expected or these things are not expected, so that you only get to see the information that's pertinent to you. Move ahead again, please. So just next slide, there we go. So we'll wrap this by talking about some of the resources. Of course, at the top, we have the VMware Cloud Management Business Unit. That's us. That's the most important one, of course. And then we have the VMware Cloud Management blog. This is the link to that. The Cloud Management Tech Zone. Of course, VMware Code. That's code.vmware.com. And VMware Cloud Management YouTube channel. This is actually a great channel. This has just come online. And we're now putting a lot of this information up there, as I believe this recording will go also. This is a great place to go back and take a look at in case you missed something, or you're looking for information on how to do something that you haven't been able to discover on your own.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Brian.
Of course.
That last YouTube channel is very important, as well as TechZone. So TechZone is relatively new, but there's a ton of content going there, as well as the YouTube channel. So that it's been around for a while, but more and more videos have been uploaded around cost, price, just Aria operations, cloud health in general. So I encourage you to have a look out there. If you're interested in it, we likely have a video for it. So
yes.
With that, I think, Brian, thank you. Soumya, thank you. And thanks for everybody for attending. I think we had 30 or so. So questions, comments, feel free to reach out to your CMBU team, to me directly, to Brian, Soumya, and we'll get any questions answered. So with that, thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.